So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening or watching from. Welcome to the ADHD Reframe Project podcast with me, host Emma. And today I am joined by the amazing Alex. So, Alex, would you like to just introduce yourself a little bit, please?
Hi, I'm Alex. I met Emma through our university. I got diagnosed first with ADHD 3 years ago, and then a year later with autism.
So, what was your diagnosis journey? What led you to kind of realizing that there may be something uniquely different about you?
I didn't think about it at all, and then my dad got diagnosed in his 50s, and I was still thinking, no, I don't have that. And then I met my partner, and after a couple of weeks, he was telling me, like, you have ADHD, right? And that's kind of how it all started. Read more into it, and tried to find a spot to get diagnosed. That's it.
I mean, and how old were you, sorry, a few years ago? Because I'm 50 now, so I'm old, feel old.
21.
21. Oh, okay. So, I mean, hypothetically, that still means that that's a late diagnosis because you didn't get diagnosed, obviously, in
Yeah.
childhood. But was that when you were living in, because you're living in the UK at the moment, aren't you? So I know you've just moved to the UK. But was that when you were still living at home in where's the country that you were born? Sorry, I've just gone round on a tangent with that. I don't know why, but
Yeah, I got diagnosed in Luxembourg.
okay. And is it a long diagnosis process? Because it is in the UK at the moment.
I think it kind of depends on where you go. I actually went to a GP who specializes or who did like a course in ADHD and is also working with addiction. So there it was a bit faster than if I would go like to a psychiatrist and then get an ADHD diagnosis. Because to get a psychiatrist appointment also takes months or a year or even more.
Yeah, it's a long process in the country at the moment. I think some of the waiting lists are between 7 and 10 years, which, if you think about that in a logistical way, it's just insane. Completely insane. So, what are you studying at university then?
I'm studying psychology, a bachelor's in psychology.
Yeah, you're a little bit further ahead than me, aren't you? And how have you managed kind of your day-to-day studies with a degree? Because this is the first lot of higher education I've ever done. I'm an education returner, so I'm classed as a mature student, but I don't act mature at all any of the time. It is classed as like a mature student, and yeah, I think as a distance learner as well, obviously we both study 100% online. So is there anything specific that you've learned to do within your studies or just to manage your daily life?
So when I first started, right after high school, I dropped out of university because honestly, I was too depressed, which was probably from ADHD. But then I worked for a bit and then I started again at Arden. And at the start, I also didn't know. I mean, I was suspecting that I have ADHD, didn't have a diagnosis or didn't take any medication. So at the start, it was really difficult because there was no clear structure on when to study. And then the weeks before the deadlines, it was always a bit crazy, a lot of mental breakdowns. Now, I think partially because of the medication, I'm able to focus or get at least some of the things done. Like before, there were days where I couldn't do anything. Even if I tried, there was, you know how it is, not working at all. And now I can get at least the minimum done. And I have usually very strict working hours. And I'm not working outside of these because then I will just burn out and just think about university all the time. So just 3, 4, 5 hours a day, and that for 3 or 4 days a week. So I still have some time to relax and not do anything university related.
Yeah, you've just highlighted a significant kind of challenge if you're a distance learner, like we both are. So we study 100% online, and it's self-paced studies, isn't it? So, or independent studying. It's we're literally like responsible for for everything apart from one live lesson or lecture. And if we want a tutorial once a week, then we can get 15 minutes. And I'm not saying that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but I think for me as an ADHD student, I've needed a little bit more structure. And I don't know about you, but I always struggle to put structure in place. If it's for me personally, if it's for anyone else, then it will be done within 5 minutes. But when it comes to me and my daily life, I think it's really difficult for me to kind of put the structure in place. But I think I have done it without even realizing. For me, I get up and I will start studying between 10 and 11 in the morning, and then I'll go maybe to 12 or 1. I'll have an hour's break, and then I come back for 2 or 3 hours. So it's like it's not the whole day. But since last year, which sounds like it was a long, long time ago, but it wasn't. It was like days ago, which is always weird about this time of the year. I've just realised that I need to try and do specific things on specific days, and then try and give myself a rest on the other days, if that makes sense. So unless the deadline is on Monday, which ours is, I won't study over the weekend. And then I'm just trying to do like 3 days. So Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. And then obviously Friday for us is a talking day because we do the neurodiversity stuff within our university. And then Monday, I think, is going to be like my content creation or my social media posts and stuff, like doing all of that. But yeah, I found it really useful basically to fill my time outside of my studies with other things, because otherwise I'd just sit at my laptop all day, every day, and basically just read everything about what they're teaching us and everything to do with psychology. And then it's like I don't know about you, but my brain sometimes just gets really tired. Although it doesn't stop, it gets tired, and it's really difficult to kind of process things when I'm learning them, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that's great that you've got like a really solid process in place. Is there anything specific that you manage your daily life with? Any software?
Not really. I mean,
I love that you're so honest. I'm sorry.
I have a very to-do list. If the no software, not anything else. But no, that's not true. Actually, I use the Finch app. I don't know if you know it. It's like a little self-care pad, and they're basic things that you can like put as a to-do. So get up, drink some water, brush your teeth, because I struggle with basic hygiene. That's really the negative part of ADHD, where I just forget, and I hate eating. I hate eating. I hate that I have to eat. I hate that I have to go into the shower, brush my teeth. It's not that I don't do it, but it takes me a lot of mental effort to actually do it. And with this app, you can just like tick it off and you get a reward. So it's working on the dopamine. It's great. If you haven't checked it out yet, you really should.
What was that called again? Sorry?
Finch.
Finch. I'm just going to write this down. Finch.
And yeah, you have like this little bird, and then it's going on an adventure every day, like when you've done, I don't know, 7 tasks. And then it comes back with like a little piece of information after a couple of hours, and you can dress it, and you can also be friends with people on it. So you can send like little encouragements to your friends.
I love this. It's weird. Oh my God. It's like, yeah, you've just touched on something else as well. It's like accountability. Like if I'm accountable to someone else, then it's done. If I'm not, if it's accountable to myself, and even if with the app, you're accountable to the little bird, aren't you? So you've got to kind of look. Oh, I love that, because it makes it a bit fun as well, like a bit more fun and exciting. And yeah, I'm going to download that and have a play around with it after we finish recording, because that sounds amazing. So yeah. It's it's weird, isn't it? It's like what can we use? What can we get accountability from? My partner, bless him, he's autistic. And he's very rigid in his routines, and he loves the routines. And although I do have some autistic traits. I don't know if traits is the right word, but I'm definitely like the literal thinking and stuff like that. And if once there is a routine in place, if we try and diverge from the routine, then I might have a little bit of a mental breakdown because I need to for instance, if we need to go to the supermarket like tomorrow, let's say, or this afternoon because we've run out of milk and I didn't know this morning or yesterday that we were going to be leaving the house. It's like my brain is not mentally prepared to get me out of the door. Like I can't. And then I can just go into a bit of a anxiety driven, either bad mood or I just go really quiet and don't speak, which is unusual for me. But yeah, it's weird. Like I need to mentally prepare myself for what's happening tomorrow. And also I need time reminders. So if we've got to leave the house or we've got to be somewhere at a certain time, bless him, my partner, Gary, bless him, he needs patience of a saint because he gives me countdowns every 5 minutes. And then in true ADHD fashion, we'll get to like, we've got to leave in 10 minutes. And then it's like a mad scramble for me to get ready. And then we leave 5 minutes later than we were meant to and stuff. But yeah, it's just, he does understand it to a point, but he doesn't because I think, for most people that don't have ADHD, it's really difficult for them to kind of understand the concepts of the way that we are because from the outside looking in, we're quite big contradictions because we can't set routines, but we need a routine. We're time blind, but we need to be reminded about things. But then sometimes I get the hump because I'm like, I know, I'm not a 5-year-old. And it's like, waiting behind someone slow in the queue or if I'm stuck in traffic is like a physical pain. But everyone else needs to be patient if they're waiting for me. It's like the walking, talking contradiction. What are your thoughts on that anyway, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like honestly, with my ADHD meds, it's a bit better. But my partner also has ADHD and probably is also autistic. I feel like with my ADHD medication, I'm slightly more autistic. That's not really how it works, just so you understand kind of what I mean.
Yeah.
He's late all the time, and I know it. Like when we decide to, okay, we have to leave then, I actually know that we won't leave at that time, but I still get mad about it when we're not leaving on time. And for me, like I'm I think I've gotten a bit better with being on time, but usually it's I'm way too early or I'm late. I'm like now in the UK, I'm not driving, but back home, I'm perfect at waiting in my car. I know exactly what I have to do to be comfortable in my car because I will always be way too early, so I won't be late. But yeah, otherwise I'm late. So
For me, what I've learned and what I've realised that I need to do, so if I've got to meet someone at a certain place at a certain time, I actually will say out loud, okay, I'll meet you at 1 p.m. on Wednesday, on whenever, next week. I won't be late. And it's the I won't be late bit that actually stops me verbalising that because then I'm accountable to that person. That then it may mean that I'm a few minutes late, but for the most part, I'll be on time. The problem is that I underestimate how much time getting anywhere will take or how much it won't take. So like you, I'm either sitting waiting in the car for a long time or it's a mad rush to find somewhere to park and then get to meet the person and stuff. But yeah, it's like, even though it's a classic symptom of ADHD, it doesn't make it any less sometimes stressful or frustrating or like in the past, I'd always feel so much shame because I would be late. And I say regularly to everyone, I'm going to be late for my own funeral. I'm not sure how I could make that actually happen, but probably I will be late for my own funeral because it's just, and I think just in the last, like most of last year, I've just tried to can't even see, tongue tied. I've tried to strip away as much shame as I can because that's not really, it can be really toxic, can't it? Personally for us, like that inner negative narrative of, nah, man, 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 man. That's why I always think mine sounds like you always wait. I don't know why you bother. And so I think, at the end of last year, I've just tried to kind of strip away all of that shame and that guilt and just advocate for myself all the time. So if I'm meeting new people, I openly tell them, do you know what? I'm probably am going to be a bit late, but it's normally no more than 5 minutes. And I used to call it, oh yeah, I'm grassing myself up, but I'm not. I'm actually making myself accountable and I'm advocating for me and my needs. Because if someone doesn't have ADHD, or if they don't really know a lot about it, if you're late, then immediate's a negative.
It's rude. It's this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's disrespectful. It's seen as disrespect, isn't it? So I think the best way that I've managed to kind of not feel that shame is just to say to people I might be a few minutes late. It's not because I'm being disrespectful. It's not because I'm on time. It's because I just underestimate times because I have ADHD. And they're like, "Huh, wow, yeah." And it seems that since I've started saying I won't be late, that seems to really help. And I don't even know why. The only reason I can think of is because it's the accountability. What do
Yeah.
you think?
Yeah, I think so too. Because I was thinking if I told people I will be late 5 minutes, then at some point I will be even more late because then I will, like before I leave, I would think, oh yeah, but I told them I will be late, so I don't have to stress as much. And then eventually I would be even later. But I think it's also great to just let them know that you will probably be late. Like it's can go either way, to be honest, but it takes away the shame and the guilt in general. Like, yeah, okay, that's just how I am, but also I will let you know in advance. So it's not like this, I don't know how to say it, but this, I'm like this and I'm not going to change.
Yeah.
You have to deal
Yeah,
with it. But it's that's how I am. But I'm trying to accommodate for myself and you.
I love that. You're taking accountability for yourself, as well as you're not blaming the ADHD for the time blindness. You're actually saying that this might happen, but if it does, it's not intentional. So I love that.
But yeah, definitely. I can relate to the shame and guilt that you're feeling for being late. For me, it's most when I'm late, it's usually because I forgot things and then have to go back. Yeah, again, with medication, slightly better, but it still happens that I forgot something important. And I think my first instinct is still to talk myself down and be like, it was so important. How could you forget? That's so stupid. But then I also kind of catch that and I'm like, oh wait, actually, although ADHD has a lot of strengths, it can also actually disable me. And I do forget things, and that's okay. That's just how it is.
No, I've got all of my calendars connected, so I get 3 reminders for things, like 2 on my laptop because it comes from my personal and student email, and then a couple on my phone. And still sometimes I get distracted and will completely forget. But I think the beauty in that is the beauty is not to actually do it, but I think where I advocate for ADHD, not just for me, myself, but for others, I think there's more of an understanding and and a respect for the fact that there possibly is going to be times where we will completely and utterly forget that something is happening and manage, even with the best will in the world, we will manage to still completely forget. But I think, in recent years, I do think there's more and more understanding that people are getting around what ADHD is and how it can disable us. Then, yeah, it can be debilitating, can't it? Some days it can be debilitating and it will stop you from being able to do anything. But then there's other days where you could change the world within an hour and, you've solved everyone else's problems. You've solved your own problems. You've cleaned the house from top to bottom. You've written your essay. And now you're like, yeah, I'm on fire. But other days you're just sitting there like you can't even speak. It's just, yeah. I just think, and I think when it comes to the medication as well, sorry, just going back to what you said about medication, because medication is a really tricky conversation for people to talk about, I think, sometimes, because there's people that are medicated and people that aren't. And I know it's a very personal experience. So for me, I am a recovering drug addict. So I first got clean in 2007. I started drinking again in 2017, and then I got sober again in 2019. And I've been clean since then, like clean as a completely total abstinence. But my mental health got worse when I very first got clean back in 2007. And it took me quite a few years to realize that actually I was getting worse and not better. And when I was diagnosed with the ADHD and I spoke to the psychiatrist, she actually asked me, because I'm open and honest about my addiction. I've got nothing to be ashamed of because it is what it is and it was what it was. But when she asked me about the kind of drugs I used to take, it was always stimulants, amphetamines. It was always, or cocaine or coffee or, whatever that would basically give me the dopamine rush in my brain. And she said to me, like, it's probably more likely that you had undiagnosed ADHD than it is that you're a drug addict, an alcoholic, or she said she didn't say that I wasn't, but she said it's a high percentage chance that it was because that was undiagnosed ADHD. And the reason why she said that was because everything got worse when I got clean. My mental health was so bad. I was suicidal at times and I literally just didn't want to be in the world anymore. And I became so angry, but it just goes to show that she prescribed me medication. I decided after I was diagnosed that I wanted to try medication. And I think we take the same medication, the slow release Concerta Excel. And it was weird because it was like my brain almost like, I don't think I've really talked about this in any podcast or anything that I've done, but it was like the minute that medication started working, like the brain was just better. I wouldn't say it's perfect because obviously it's not, but it was like the light just switched on a little bit and I was like, my God, like this is, wow. It was weird. Within an hour, I just felt like I could do things. Was that your experience? Not the addiction, obviously. I mean, the medication. I'm not saying I wasn't asking you if you were a drug addict because, no, sorry. Yeah, but about the medication, I'm just because it intrigues me, different people's journeys.
I mean, I didn't have the addiction, but during my teenage years, I was really depressed. So also comes from the same source, kind of. And when I first tried ADHD medication, like the first day, I was thinking, oh, this is horrible. I didn't know what to do with myself. Like I felt so driven. And I think it's also because I've never really had coffee before. So my brain just wasn't used to it at all to function and to have energy. And then after the second day was all good. It was just the first time that I actually had energy and I was driven and my body was so confused what to do with it. And then, yeah, after the second time, it calmed down and it's really good. And sometimes I don't think my medication is working anymore. And then I don't take it for a day or two. And then I'm remembering that it is actually working. And I notice, oh yeah, actually, yeah, it is
It's
help.
crazy, isn't it? Yeah,
I
it's
think there's just
crazy.
more brain fog. I think that's the significant difference. Less brain fog and more energy. But yeah, I find the topic of medication really, really interesting because I feel like the consensus is that when people are diagnosed as a child and they've taken medication as a child, they don't want to take anything in adulthood. And they're either self-medicating, usually with weed or coffee or something. And people who get diagnosed as an adult feel like medication is godsend, kind of, and are really happy to be able to take medication. So yeah, that's really, really interesting. Yeah, definitely think that the addiction comes from ADHD. That's also why my GP, or like the GP I went to, specialized in addiction and ADHD because both of them are mostly linked.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same parts of the brain, isn't it? It's the reward pathway in the brain that feeds both things, ADHD and addiction. So I know for adults, ADHD, primarily it can be cannabis, alcohol, nicotine. Nicotine is a big one for me, but it's the only one that, it's the only one that I've got now. But yeah, I know it is a little bit of a kind of taboo subject, and I do like to talk about, addiction, or not even like substance specific addiction. You could talk about addictive behaviors,
Mhm.
sex, food, just, yeah, shopping, pretty much anything and everything that is going to release the dopamine in the brain is possible for, people that have got ADHD. So it's great to kind of open up the conversations and talk. And have you noticed any differences in the symptoms between yourself and your partner? Because I'm always intrigued to kind of know if you've got two, because we can look at the information that we can find online, and there's lots of research that's happening, and obviously there is some big differences in the symptoms between men and women. So I'm just a little bit intrigued to kind of know a little bit more of your experience of that, please.
I think honestly it's quite similar, like both more of the dreamy type. What the main difference is that he does a lot of side quests. That's what I call it. A lot of when we're going somewhere, oh, let's do that as well. And then, oh, let's just take a look there. And I then struggle with, because I have to mentally, just as you said before, I have to mentally prepare myself for doing things. I think I'm a lot more tired. I think my ADHD, obviously the hyperactivity is more internal and that tires me out. And for him, his ADHD and like the hyperactivity is also internal, but also external sometimes, like with these, not like he's running up the walls, like this typical little boy behavior kind of, but still a bit more external. So I get really tired out by doing side quests. And I think that's maybe the main difference for us.
Now, have you noticed any difference in your symptoms when it comes to your menstrual cycle?
Uh, yeah, I would say so. I mean, obviously, that's the topic I'm most
Yeah, yeah.
interested in. No
Wondered if you'd
problem.
noticed any.
But yeah, I mean, I think also I noticed more brain fog mainly. I think before my period. And obviously there are a lot of studies that, let's say, not negative, but yeah, negative symptoms of ADHD get stronger, more intense in the premenstrual or in the luteal phase. And there's a lot of overlap with PMS and PMDD, which is also really interesting. Obviously, there's no research not a lot of research with women and ADHD, and not a lot of research in just women biology and how the whole cycle works. So there's still a lot to do,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of people, a lot of women who I talk to, people who have a menstrual cycle and have ADHD. I think over half of them has PMDD symptoms.
Yeah.
And yeah. But I've talked to one, and she noticed that before her ovulation or during her ovulation, she has really positive ADHD symptoms, like a lot of creativity, very excited and flowy. And so that's really cool as well to really see the shift, more research coming, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully I
I
will
like
be able
that.
to do
Yeah.
that research.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, we're going to contribute to the research around ADHD in women, aren't we? Whether it's hormonal or not specific just to them. But yeah, I can't wait until we both do our dissertations, because it's going to be an interesting find, I think. But I think, yeah, I just think, for me, obviously, as a late diagnosed, both are late diagnosed ADHD women. So I do generally tend to focus more on women than I do men and boys. And that's not because there's any feminist isms going on there. It's just because that's my experiences, my lived experiences. But it's always interesting to kind of think about how, for men, not always, sometimes the hyperactivity is external. So they'll be running around getting sometimes really stressed or really angry quite quickly and stuff. But for us women, it's more internal, and it's the racing thoughts, and it's the brain that it gets to midnight and all of a sudden your brain's like ping, and it wants you to go down and like basically change the world. And Yeah, but then you get up in the morning and you're exhausted because your brain just won't shut up because it's just like ching, 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 ching. But, for me personally, when it came to PMS, PMDD, I definitely have had PMDD for as long as I can remember. Never diagnosed with it, but categorically can tell you that yes, although I'm not medically trained. But for me, the perimenopause, perimenopause has been the biggest. So the brain fog is it's almost like I got diagnosed with ADHD, started taking the meds, and then things got significantly better. And it was only maybe 3 or 4 years ago that my partner and one of my friends noticed that I was really angry like a lot of the time, and I just had I had no control. Now I know a symptom of ADHD is emotional dysregulation, but it's like I had like a semblance of control over my anger, but then the perimenopause hit and it just felt like I was losing my mind, like literally. The fatigue, the brain fog, the angry outbursts, and and I'm sure I've moved from the perimenopause into the menopause process like now, although the doctors can't tell me because of I don't have periods. But yeah, I mean, it's just, and this has kind of fueled my interest in, ADHD in women and hormonal fluctuations. And I love that we can talk about that together as well, because I know you're really interested in it. So it's going to be really exciting to see where our research goes in the future. But yeah, so maybe we could finish today is there anything specific? Like, I had a conversation with a friend last week, and I always talk about toxic negativity when it comes to ADHD. She mentioned something about toxic positivity, and I was like, what? I've never heard of it before. And I think there's something going on that I don't know who's saying it or where it's coming from. Maybe social media about, calling ADHD like a superpower, or you're gifted, or, if you're positive about it all the time, it can become really toxic, like toxic positivity. Is there any positive strengths that you've got that other people without ADHD don't have?
I think a lot of two things. One, very strong feelings, which can also be negative because it's exhausting, but also feeling very deeply, feeling very excited. And then the other thing also works well with it. The passion, really burning for things and getting really, really, really excited for things. That is really cool. To just be so happy about ADHD, for example, or I don't know, just a specific topic that I'm interested in. Yeah, that's, I think, the main.
I love that because passion and enthusiasm is the feedback that I get regularly. Like that, everyone says it's so passionate and so enthusiastic, and full of energy when it's my special interest, which happens to be ADHD.
Yep.
My partner says to me regularly, if he had £1 for every time I've said ADHD in the last however many years, he'd be a millionaire by now. But I think I love that when you can kind of nurture that passion and that enthusiasm and that kind of high energy into something that you really care about. And, for me, it's learning as much as I can about ADHD and talk about it. But I think it's great when I meet other women like you when we can talk about it openly. And it's like, yeah, this is the shit that we need in our lives. So do you think you've ever masked that passion and that excitement and that energy? Sorry, we're going to finish then, but now we've gone off on a little bit of a tangent. Masking and unmasking is another fascination of mine.
I'm trying to think about like a specific example, like when I told people about my dissertation topic, maybe a tiny bit. Most of the time I'm not able to mask my excitement, but I think depending on who I talk to, I do adapt it a bit. Like I knew two women who have ADHD, and I was so excited to tell them about my research because I knew they would be excited as well. And it was just such a great feeling as well to I am so excited to talk to that person about my favorite topic. And I told other people and I was also excited, but maybe not as much.
And
But
do you think
yeah.
that there's any of your ADHD symptoms that you would mask in any particular environments? Because I've noticed since I started studying that there are certain environments or certain meetings or appointments or things where I have in the past masked my ADHD. I did it when I was working to a point. Well, even though I was still working after I was diagnosed, but there's been places where I've worked or friends, or not necessarily directly with friends, but if we've gone out anywhere, or if we've done whatever it is that friend you do with your friends. I think there are times when I have massively masked the ADHD, and I don't know about you, but it is literally exhausting trying to live up to the societal expectations of turn taking and being punctual and lots of different kind of norms and expectations. And now I can't be bothered anymore because it's so exhausting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I still mask, but it's much more exhausting than before. Before, I didn't really know, and now being diagnosed with ADHD and autism, I always use like the example of taking a mattress that is rolled together out of a package, and then there's a huge mattress, and there's no way you will get it back in that package, and you just have to deal with it. And that's basically how it is. Now I have this diagnosis, and I see it, and there's just no going back. Not really. So I still mask sometimes, but takes a lot more effort than before. But I'm also, last year, I was like, the word of the year for me was authenticity. And I think I really lived up to it. And I tried to not mask as much and I started to say, sorry, I'm really overstimulated. I will go home now, and not force myself through events. Before, I definitely just shut down, and then I was completely, yeah, tired and
Exhausted. Mm.
exhausted at the end of it, and not being able to speak, and then just my battery completely running out. And now I'm just telling people, sorry, but I will leave now because this is too much. And it helps me, and I think it also helps other people to see that you don't have to stay if you don't want to, which was a revelation for me as well. When I was in a museum with a friend, and I was already exhausted because we spent so much time in there. And then they were telling me, you don't have to see the whole exhibition, right? You can just leave. It was like my mind just was blown. What? You're telling me I don't have to see everything? I can leave? So,
Yeah.
yeah, would definitely recommend, but there's no way going back to that.
Yeah. I love the mattress analogy. That's an amazing analogy. Like I know for myself, I do have extreme intense emotions, and I am or can be at times still very oversensitive to things, situations, people, and I love that analogy of like last year, I just almost not forced myself, but I just decided that I was going to stop masking, and I was going to just be myself and be kind of comfortable and confident with my authentic self. And it was such an empowering, but also at times exhausting process or experience, because there's still sometimes in my mind I'm like, I shouldn't have said that out loud. Or, oh my God, like you remember when, and I can run through things in my mind, but I think, to kind of really educate people about what ADHD is, we need to be turning up to wherever we're going. I don't mean literally leaving the house or going out to socialize or whatever. I mean, but if we turn up as ourselves, then surely that's the quickest and easiest way to kind of to teach people about what ADHD is. And it's, for me, like the strengths are just, I mean, I talk a lot, but I'm very outspoken, but I can do it respectfully outspoken. I will talk about subjects that other people may not even want to consider talking about. I'm very hardworking. I love learning. I'm very compassionate, very empathetic. I can connect with a lot of people, and I don't even know how I do it half the time. My friends always say to me, how do you always know the right thing to say at the right time? And I'm like, I don't know. I just can. It's weird, and it's like, but there's things that I have as an ADHD woman, and the things that I do and the way that I do things that other people probably would have either a meltdown or they're like, they don't understand like the processes that I follow, or, the sense of urgency and the hyper focus and, things like that. It's like the more that we talk about these things, the more that they're going to be understood. So then the less we have to advocate for ourselves. And yeah, and I think it's just, I don't know, I like talking about ADHD, so it's a win-win for me. But it has been an absolute pleasure to have you as the second guest for the ADHD Reframe Project podcast. It's a bit of a long-winded. Sometimes I think I should have chosen a shorter name, but it's too late now. It's out there. But it has been an absolute pleasure, Alex. Thank you for taking the time out, because I know our studies we have to submit on Monday. So we're super busy this week, but thank you. I appreciate the time that you've taken to meet with me today and for being honest. And to our listeners, the ADHD Reframe Project is now on YouTube, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please like and share, follow if you'd like to hear more conversations around ADHD. And I'd like to say a huge thank you to Alex, and take care. Thank you. Goodbye now.